Hello, good morning, everyone. Happy Sunday, wherever you're logging in from. Good morning, good evening, watching from YouTube, Twitter, LinkedIn, wherever you are. Thank you for joining in on this very special Sunday. If you are if you're watching us live, please do put in your comments. Okay, great. I already see a lot of comments flowing in. Good morning, Nitin. Good morning, Manish. Good morning, Ashok. Wonderful. Such a fantastic start. Uh, no wonder, and I'm very sure I'm not in a world of dreamland illusion. I know it's not because of me, it's because of the other person who is on the show. And before I bring you the other person on the show, let me very briefly tell you about what is Career Track and why I'm doing this. Career Track is a passion project of mine. I'm a career coach. I've been a career coach for more than a decade now, certified by ICF as a professional certified coach. During my spare time, I do coaching sessions, and learnings from those coaching sessions is what I've been giving back through the project called 100 Days Career Trek. That's something that you can follow me on LinkedIn. You'll get to see the post when you search for the hashtag 100 Days Career Trek. And another thing that I'm doing is getting celebrity executives, CEOs, CXOs. And I'm very careful in picking and choosing the CXOs. Uh, what I'm looking for is the career journeys where we can get a lot of learning from. And those are the journeys that I'm looking from. And we have a very special guest today. And as I say that, I'm pretty pleased with lot of good mornings coming our way. Arshad, Rakesh, Bala, Lakshmi, Sudhanshu, someone who's been a pretty regular on my show. Hi, Ashima from Malaysia, I guess. Priya, great. So keep your introductions coming in. Um, fantastic. Hi, Chid. Hi, Mohan. Great. So before, I think if I keep reading the introductions, that will take up the 1 hour. So let me straight get in and very briefly tell you about our guest, and let me introduce the guest. I usually joke with him saying, I have to look up to you, no choice, for two reasons. One, because of his height. uh, I really have to look up to him, and I have attempted many times to be in the same frame in a selfie. It never happened. So the last time I chose to sit with him in a chair and take a selfie, and because of his stature, because of who he is as a person, what he has accomplished, and I would go to the extent of saying humility is his second name, though VSG is his first name. Um, and his career has been very interesting from someone who started off with a business as an entrepreneur at a very young age, and different, being the youngest general manager at a very young age. So a lot of fuss, but a lot of bumps along the way. Um, of course, as of today, he is the managing director of Page Industries. I've had the pleasure of having wonderful conversations with him, where he was generous enough to share a lot of life lessons. And hence, I felt I should not be selfish enough to keep it with me. I should share it with the larger audience, and that's how we have our one and only very own VSG. So,
One,
VSG, thank you so much. Thank you so much for joining us today, giving us your time. Um, I know after running a listed entity for the week, you would not mind a lazy Sunday morning, but we had to pull you here, and thank you so much for joining us.
it's my pleasure, coach. It's always a pleasure.
So, VSG, like we were discussing, the very reason a lot obviously has been written and known about your success, about your career journey, etc. And the subject of our discussion today is uh, probably something which is not written in any of the public media. This is more about your personal career journey, and a lot of people who logged in. I can see, hi, Mohan, Anita, Guru, Naveen, Lakshmi. Okay, it's pretty much a Page Confluence, plus few other names here. So I think we know, like they say in terms of the iceberg, we know the success bit of it, um, and of course that seems fancy and very easy. And I'm sure on the way there have been a lot of bumps and defining career moments that would lock a lot of learning for us. So to start with, I would request you to just walk us through probably 2-3 defining moments of your career, and something that can offer a lot of learning for us.
Okay, thank you, coach, and let me welcome everybody. Thank you for joining in. And coach, I think this is the first such meet in 23, right? Am I right?
Yes, 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 VSG. This is the first episode of 23.
Wish you all the very best and hope this is a great start for a great year ahead to all of you and for this particular initiative of yours. Really appreciate. In fact, I've been attending all the webinars of yours and they were huge learnings. And it is very pleasurable that you're bringing in people and having a free, candid talk. You know. So coming back to your question, yes, let me say something which shaped my career happened in my childhood, when I was 7.
Okay.
First of all, I was born in a very small town. So it's a place called Kollam in the southern part of Kerala. Very, very small town. And how can I say, it is like, I was like the Swami of Malgudi days, that kind of a village or a town. And very little support infrastructure there. And I was not a healthy kid when I was very young, and I had a very tough sixth or seventh year when the health system was not good. I was not healthy, wrong diagnosis, wrong treatment. I got jaundice, albumin, big problems, and I literally couldn't go to school.
Oh,
I lost quite a lot of days. I was in the second standard at that time.
okay.
I lost quite a lot of academic days and I couldn't fulfill the attendance, the minimum requirement. So I was detained. Basically, I failed in my second grade. And, you know, I was 7, I didn't know the seriousness of it. And I was not all that good. I was not well. Even though I did very well in exams. So I lost quite a lot of this playfulness of kids. I couldn't play. I was not healthy enough for that. My only companion was, of course, the emotional support, love, and affection from my parents. And seeing my state, they were showering a lot of affection and care. My dad and my mom, and I can say my mom especially. Those were days where I had to live without salt and oil for 7 months. In fact, 3 years I had ration when it comes to salt and oil because of the albumin levels and stuff. So I remember during my birthday they give me dish with salt. you know. So it was difficult, and I actually failed in my second grade.
Mm.
And I realized it. So I do remember even today this particular thing. This is like a picture in me keeps replaying. My mom was, those days, those brown wrappers you put on the textbooks and notebooks.
Right, right, yeah.
And I was with her, very playful. She was doing it, and she broke down because it's the same second standard book she's redoing. I had to go, and I was a tall boy. So I looked like a fifth standard guy, very tall, last bencher. And this is happening to me. She literally was crying. I couldn't take it. It it hurt me a lot. That is a time I got so emotionally affected. I felt this should not happen to my parents for the love and affection they are showing me. I felt so guilty, and I think I became very responsible after that. That particular incident, that 5 minutes, I feel it changed me. I never seen my dad breaking down when he saw my mom in that state, and when he broke down, and that was the only time I think I saw him tears. I've never seen him like that before. This affected me a lot,
Hmm.
and I think compared to many other kids, I became very responsible. And till my age of 12, I had only books as companion. So this and the books, I think it shaped me. You know, I think that 1 year going back to the second standard was a good investment. And sometimes I feel you learn from these kind of episodes, uh, provided you look at it through the right lens, right perspective. And had I been not in that right place, had I been outside in some other room at that particular moment when my mom and dad went through that 5 minutes or 10 minutes, maybe I would not be where I am today. So it's all sometimes stands. But it may sound very
So
tribal,
would you would
but
you say failure at an early stage is a actually a blessing in disguise?
uh, but I always believe, how do you take experience?
Hmm.
It is not just failure alone which actually makes it that way. It is how you deal with such things. And I always feel you should be the designer, not the design. When these things happen, if you leave it to fate and say what to do, then you are part of the design. You are not a designer. But if you say, I am going to design my future because of all these setbacks, that is when experience actually helps you. Otherwise, these are just episodes. It doesn't add any value. So how you respond, how you react is, I feel, is very, very important. And there at a young age, these are shaped by your parents and their value systems. I do remember when I went to the school, when the headmaster broke this news, and I was only the student who was detained. It's generally all promotion, you know. When he broke the news, he did tell my dad, actually we can fix attendance issue, but knowing you, I thought I should speak to you. And my dad said, you should not do anything which is not right. He was a very principled man, and he
Hmm.
didn't his son losing a year, but he didn't want to do something which is out of the norm. So he said, no, I won't agree to that. You should not do. He taught me a lesson. See, this is where they say values, how you react when you are in tough times, not in what you say, but what you practice. He literally demonstrated. See, when I reflect back on them, I really understand the power of these things. And let me tell you, coach, I also learned how you should be assertive yourself. When this happened, when I went back to school, I could see many of my friends who have gone to the third standard, some, some way sarcastic. There was a lot of joy when they saw somebody who was with them failing. So I could see sometimes some people celebrate others' failure. There is a sense of pleasure, sense of joy. Sometimes there's a feeling, this means I'm better than him. They look at it in very relative terms. Close circle. They may know what I went through, and still there was a lot of pressure personally on me. I was seen as a failure. There was
Hmm.
no sympathy that it was your health, it was your attendance. And that gave you a right perspective. Things are not how it looks around you. There is much more to it, and you should fend for yourself, and you should have your own. You should not be going by what others say. You should have your own identity. You learn all these sometimes when you go through these experiences.
But
And
isn't it, as a 7 year old, wasn't it too much to absorb all of this?
maybe I
Uh,
didn't have respect at that time, but when you have the ability to rewind and read,
hmm.
you learn. So maybe it might have helped me in my teens, not at that time for sure. I agree with you. That's where they say sometimes history is also a mirror for the future, but you should know how to look at it. How should you should go back and see and rewind. So it has helped me as I moved forward. In fact, I can say I was an average student till my
Hmm.
10th grade. I became serious only after that, even though this happened in my second grade.
Hmm.
But I was a voracious reader. In fact, just across my house, there is a library and a reading room. Straight from
Okay.
school there. Um, in fact, I might have that library. Most of the books I would have read, and the reading room, all magazines, all newspapers. I read. I come back home for dinner. I remember the librarian when he gets the new books because I might have read all the back old ones. He used to keep it in the back of his. There is a storeroom. When I go, he'll say these new books are come before others take if you want to because you might have read all the other books. So he used to give me he used to give me preference. So I think those helped.
How did you pick up the habit of reading? Was it something that you got from your parents?
No, because you see, I can't play. I was not fit enough to play. I was always in the bed. I was and I'm not an introvert. So you need to keep yourself engaged. You know, so you the only companion you have is books, and you reading, and then it becomes an habit. Today, I can't start a day without reading for 45 minutes. It becomes an habit. So it happened, and that has helped me quite a lot. And I remember in my teens, I reading quite a lot about Trump. And my cousin, in fact, he was there yesterday, and he was telling me we're the first guy in my very young days in a small place in Kollam talking about a guy called Donald Trump, who eventually became the president of US. Because those days you didn't have internet, you don't have Google. It's just competition success, illustrated weekly, the newspapers.
Yeah, I can imagine if you have challenged the librarian to find books that you haven't read. I'm sure how much you have read.
Yeah, so I didn't have any particular. I used to read even management books those days, and to Annie Blyton, you know, uh, Hardy Boys, to management books. There was no anything which comes to me. I used to read.
So what I'm taking away from this bit of the conversation is you're saying it's not about failure. Failures can happen. Uh, it's about how you respond to those failing moments. How you react. What you learn from it is what defines you as a person.
Absolutely, absolutely. I think nobody will be a good sailor unless they have met rough seas. If
Hmm.
you are always in a good sea, you would never become a good sailor.
Hmm.
So that is very, very, very important. But while tough situations create tough conditions,
Hmm.
how you respond is what conditions yourself. It may give you the condition. Now, how you respond to those conditions will condition yourself as a person. And that is in your hand. How
So
can I say?
curious.
Let me say, if this If I'm a pessimist, I will never do anything. I'll blame it on the sea. And I will say my ship wrecked. I lost direction because it is not me. The weather gods conspired against me.
Hmm.
If I am an optimist, I will say it's question of time. Let me just sit and be patient. The direction of the wind will change.
Hmm.
But you need to be a realist to change the sail and go against the wind, right? And that very few people do. So I don't feel it's only the experience or it's only the condition, but how you respond, that conditions yourself. And if you're in the third category, which maybe 1 in 100 would, then they will climb up. So you need to condition yourself for that, and I feel that is very, very important. Otherwise, nobody will have a cakewalk. We have to go through difficulties. We need to, you need a very, very molten metal to be beaten to get its shape or form. Otherwise, you can't just walk in and get in there. And there are lessons in everything. And if you're fully deployed, you learn most of them.
So
Coach,
I'm.
I firmly believe experience aren't truly yours until you think about them. Unless
Hmm.
you rewind, you think, unless you analyze them, unless you question them, unless you examine them, unless you reflect on them,
Hmm.
you won't understand. You need to go through all those journeys so that you understand. So the point is to use your experience rather than being used by your experience. You should not allow experience to consume you. You should use your experience rather than being used by experiences. As I told you, you should be the designer, you should not be the design. So that
Yeah.
experience empowers you rather than consuming you or imprisoning you.
Yeah. So two words that come to my mind is the victim mindset and externalizing the problem. So victim mindset sort of says it all has happened, why me, and you get into that negative spiral. And you tend to externalize it has happened because of ABC, and I can't do much about it.
Yeah.
um, so as you progressed, as in has your template of responding to challenging scenarios, has that changed over a period of time? As in, even when you are in very senior roles in business, there may be good quarters, there may not be good quarters. And how do you how has your template of responding to challenges changed over a period of time?
Actually, it keeps me going. In fact, I always feel you need these are wake up calls. When you have tough times, it wakes you up, makes you think. Otherwise, you tend to hibernate. You tend to get into cruise control modes. You need
Hmm.
those perks. It is absolutely essential. So you should look at it that way. You know, and critical reflection. I always have looked at it that way. The art of critical reflection, where you look at things yourself more inward rather than blaming others, is very, very important.
Hmm.
And when the reflection pushes to the deeper level to self, it becomes possible for you to jettison from dysfunctional assumptions, dysfunction or other behaviors.
Hmm.
That is when deep learning occurs.
Yeah.
And for me, that is transformative learning. You know, and this is where you should have poise of yourself. You should be having a good control over yourself despite all the tough situations. You should not allow the situation to take control of you.
Okay.
And that requires a lot of practice. Many don't get it there. And you need to be calm. You need to You need to have a very calm and steady state of mind. Despite all the turbulence which goes around you, that's when you can think rational. Sometimes they are emotionally so overwhelming, and emotionally you react, you never respond. So you need to have the ability to swallow it, give time, and respond to certain situations at the right time. Sometimes many leaders think we have to take quick decisions, and when it comes to decision making, they feel the speed is the essence. Not necessarily,
Hmm.
because those may be intelligent decisions, may not be wise decisions. There's a big difference between the two.
Slightly off the track, could be out of syllabus. Feel free to park the question. But over close to 3 decades of your career, what was the most challenging situation that you had?
Oh, well, the initial days, I can say, because uh, see what happened, coach. Once I did my studies, my mentor, somebody who shaped me so well, I will give a lot of credit to my uncle.
Okay.
And I moved to, so I took this decision. I was always ambitious, and I always dreamed big. I always wanted to do very different. So as I told you, even though I was not the top in the school, those days the opportunities were very less. I'm talking about 80s, where jobs were low. People used to self-immolate themselves because of not getting jobs. That was a political condition in India, and everybody writes these railway test, bank test, the UPSC test, with the HB pencil. I always wanted to do something different, and I felt I need not be in that crowd. Everybody's dream at that time was to be an engineer. And when I
Hmm.
saw everybody going into it, I was looking, it's 5 years. By the time 5 years, demand supply will be such that I may be part of the crowd. So I was looking at what is going to be the future requirement for which people are not going in. Everybody's taking the beaten path. So I wanted to do something different. And this was also the stock exchange boom time. So the stock market was booming like anything. Harshad Mehta time, actually.
Okay.
Everybody going public. That is when I realized there is going to be a dearth of company secretaries in India. And nobody knew about these courses, especially in sleepy towns like Kerala. People don't know. And those days, communication networks are not there. I somehow figured it out. I had decided at that time I need to take such courses rather than taking the beaten track. So I was spending a lot of my time preparing for those, reading those company law when I was doing my maths. So I did average in my core because I was spending a lot of time because I had a clear plan in my mind. I was not thinking to be a rank holder in what I am doing. I knew the direction I have to take. I was looking at how will I manage my time to get where I want to be rather than being compared with my peer groups. And I took being in the middle of the batch, not the topper. You don't get the respect. You are not looked up. I took it on my and I because I was very clear what I want to do. I was looking at long term. I was not looking at these short term setbacks, and I was at it. So I did my finance. I did my secretariat. But coming back, what helped me was
But what?
why.
Sorry to interrupt you there, VSG. Um, the kind of and the more coaches I interact with, the biggest problem that we grapple with is figuring out what we want. Um, many of us are clear on what we don't like, but are not clear on what we like. Uh, for you to have the clarity saying that company secretaryship, this is going to be the future. Having sights set on it and having that kind of clarity, what would you attribute that to?
Uh, See, one was the dream. I always wanted to do big, and I wanted to be very good at what I'm doing. And I actually was, and sometimes it's good to be materialistic. I used to dream buying a car, taking my parents to the temple, and I was thinking to get that car, how much should I earn? I used to even think, how much should I save to get it quickly? What's the cost of living? Therefore, what kind of house or dormitory I should live so that I can save and buy the car. So sometimes it helps when you're so focused, and therefore you should say this is the salary I should get, all this. And I was working hard, and therefore, and I had an age. In fact, I wanted to make sure I get my car before I'm 24. You know, so how quickly should I
Wow.
pass to get it? All this was part of my agenda, and therefore I used to work backward, and I used to have plans. You know, and this goes down to the level of therefore how my day should be. How many hours
Mm.
should I? So it starts from how to get a car when you're 24, how much money, therefore you do budget, how much should you save, therefore how should you study today, at what speed should you cross your courses. And none of my friends knew that I'm doing this because I'm also going to college and doing so I didn't choose engineering because that's a 5 year course. I was very clear I want to take this track. So I didn't go for engineering. My parents were forcing me to write the exam. I went to the
Mm.
hall. I did something. I wanted to fail myself. I can tell my parents, I tried, I didn't get. Yes, I didn't want to spend 5 years on that because I didn't want to go there. And then I took BSc. So my parents were feeling, oh, this guy, his 80% of his class is going for professional courses, and this guy is going for BSc maths. And I am actually starting to prepare for my ACS and CFA and all those courses. But that clarity is one. Now you ask this question, how did you have that clarity that this is where your passion lies? I don't know that is where my that time it is your hunger to succeed and finding a place where you can grow fast while others are taking bus. I felt this is the aircraft I can take, you know.
Mm.
And I went there and I passed. I worked in the company. I was in the finance department. I worked in finance for only 10 days. I knew
Okay.
this is my cup of tea. Yeah, I knew this because see that time you are not seeing corporate world, you are not worked. All that is bookish knowledge, your hunger to succeed. And I realized, I'm not enjoying this being vouchers, books, ticking all the ledgers, looking at compliance. And we had Lotus 123 at that time, making those spreadsheets with that. I can't see the results. I can't influence. I'm dependent on others, but I'm just a bookkeeper and sitting in one seat from morning to evening and challenging the upholstery of the seat in which I'm sitting. I didn't feel comfortable, and I decided I had to change track, and I quit that job
Mm.
and another company, which is, and I will say that was a good decision I took. Joined a small company with a great ambition to grow. Though I joined in finance, I was working so closely with the leadership that I was involved in everything. And I I realized operations is where I will enjoy because I can see change. I was not an engineer, and I got into the thick of the operations. But that I worked so hard. And I got the great exposure. Sometimes being a small company, working hard gives you exposure. They were placing shares with FIIs. I was doing the pitch.
Oh,
I used to make the commitments. This is the 5-year plan of the company, and this is how the product is. This is the market I'm looking at, and then therefore how the factories are going to be built. And you raise funds, and then you need to meet them again. You need to walk the talk, right? So you involve yourself. So in a way, I got dragged into marketing. I was doing more than accounting. I was doing finance. I was into operations because I made commitments to the teams, the external stakeholders, that this is what we are going to get into. These are the 5-year plan, 3-year plan. And I just became a generalist than a specialist without me realizing. That company gave me that opportunity because it was a small company with aspiration, and they were looking for talent who was willing to work hard, and they gave me the exposure. That is when I realized the true power of empowerment.
so just to just to
Coach, there I was not working for my boss. He was giving me so much exposure. I know when I am talking to Lloyd George or Perry Green or Morgan and Stanley, when they come next time, they'll be looking at me as a person because I was a spokesperson. So I didn't want to let myself down, and therefore I was driving the organization. And it was not the designation I had; it was not the hierarchy which I had. So those costs help. So my salary at that
so
time when
just
I got the
to
car.
just to put this in context for myself, you were clear on doing company secretaryship, invested in finance, did your education, moved into a role, moved into a finance role, and in 10 days moved out of that role and got into another role which gave you that wider exposure.
Yeah.
So while when you were quitting the finance role, saying, though people might say now that patience is one of the strengths of VSG. At that point, probably you didn't have patience. As in, by 10 days you were clear you wanted to. That's not the place you wanted to be. You didn't want to give time to see how this pans out, etc. That's question one. Question two. From there to landing an opportunity which gave you that wider exposure, is that a stroke of luck, or if how did that happen?
Okay. Uh, so when it comes to patience, I tell you, I was patient. In fact, it derailed my goal of getting the car. Because my first job in that the first one was 7,000 rupees salary, coach.
Okay.
Those days it was a good amount. And the new job, I was taken as a management trainee for 2,000 rupees.
Ooh.
Take a huge haircut, you know, and uh, after ESI and other things, I get 600, 1,600. So I knew I'm not going to get the car on time.
That's a big shift, as in moving from a 7,000 to a 1,600, 2,000. Um, so that, so money was not, you did not prioritize money, though you had a very clear goal on owning a car by 24.
Yeah, so I didn't own the car by 24.
Okay.
So, you know, I was the first guy to have a chauffeur driven auto rickshaw in Kochi. Tuk tuk, three-wheeler. So I got my own auto rickshaw. I had a driver called Lenin who used to take me to the factory. So it was a private auto, my own auto.
So you wanted to go to
So,
work in your own vehicle and you did that.
yeah, yeah, I got an auto. That's what I could afford.
Awesome. Okay.
So, so
But
you,
money would have
I
money would have
compromised.
been
Parents came to Kochi to see me. I
okay.
took to the nearby Shiva temple in the auto rickshaw. Came back home.
But at that age, to make a trade-off, saying money, money will come eventually. It's the role that I need to focus on.
Absolutely. See, I always believed, you should do what you're passionate about. Otherwise, you are doing a job. You are working. Now, if you're following a passion, you don't feel like you are working. See, why do you think I'm talking to you today on a Sunday? And I am very happy. I feel energized because, see, work and pleasure, when it becomes one, if it can give the same pleasure which it can give you when you watch an IPL match or a movie, then you don't get tired. And I always believe that that is what you need to look at. I always believe in Nishkanda Karma. If you do your job, rewards will come. It's question of time. One day or the other it will come. It may not come immediately, but it will come. But you should be very clear of where you want to excel, what will allow you to excel, you know. And you need to be in a zone where you are comfortable. You can't be doing everything, right? So you need to know where your passion lies. You need to discover. It's a discovery. And some people get it fast. Some it's just a trial and error process also. But coming back to your other question, did the job which I got was sheer luck? It was not. It was again a public company in Kerala, which actually there are very few listed companies there,
Mm.
and they were looking for talent. And I knew this company was thinking very different. See, this was the first India's first company which was giving eco-friendly furniture. Those days, today we talk about sustainability. Those days, that company was talking about sustainable timber, environment friendly furniture made out of rubber wood. One of the first factories after Malaysia. In fact, I
Mm.
can say first organized sector in India. It was a visionary leadership, kind of ideas which today the startups talk about. A visionary leader thought about it those days. And this this kind of gave me a great connect, and I was not looking at the money. And I also knew this company has a great opportunity to grow, and it's a small team. I knew I can work directly with the managing director so closely. See, at a young age, as a management, if you can get an occasion to work with the directors of the company, the kind of exposure which it gives, it is better to be somebody known in a small place rather than being a drop in the ocean in a big place, especially in your starting phase, because you are just going through a learning curve. So I chose that time. By the way,
So many
I,
times.
I, I only passed my company secretaryship. I never qualified because you have to do a 1 year internship. In 10 days, I came back. So I can't practice, I can't sign, I can't put a seal, because I just passed all the exam and I knew it's not my cup of tea.
Oh, so you're not tempted to do the finishing touch to get that
No,
badge or signing authority?
I didn't have the time, coach. I was immersed with work and I was doing everything other than company secretary work. I was doing marketing, I was doing factory management, I was building factories, I was running around to get orders, and I was so immersed in work, I didn't get time for it. And then came a stage I felt it's not relevant because no, but today, coach, you are an HR. When you are trying to grow a person and when you are trying to promote a guy, or when you feel he's a great talent, are you going to take, if he's a 45-year-old guy, are you going to take his 22nd year's certificate and what he did in academics? I don't think you go and revisit them. You go by
No.
what attitude he has, what he brings to the table, the passion he has, as a person, how good he is, how he interacts and deals with others, especially how he molds his team. This is what takes precedence. So this doesn't matter.
Hmm. Amazing. So, a couple of takeaways from this conversation for me and for the larger group. Many times I get this question of is it wise to be a big fish in small pond or small fish in big pond? What I hear you say is, especially at an earlier stages of your career, it's good to be a big fish in small pond because you get to do more. You get access to the leadership. You get that exposure, etc.
A pond which is not going to dry up. Many companies, the promoters themselves today are not committed. They feel I need to grow this evaluation game and then sell it to somebody else.
Mm.
Now, I don't believe a youngster should spend his prime time of learning in that kind of organization because the promoter himself is not committed to the organization.
Right.
So it depends. You need to choose your pond. There are a lot of ponds. Some ponds are dirty, some ponds are good, and you need to choose the right pond.
Yeah, and something that resonates with your value system. So here is a question which is similar to what something similar to what we spoke just now from Ashok. Hard work vis-a-vis smart work towards career in senior positions. Again, something similar which we were discussing in our prep talk or prep conversation, saying uh, how much should I, my works will do the job. I'll let my success speak in silence vis-a-vis showcasing my work. How does this interplay? How do you see this interplay?
Uh, it's a combination of hard work and smart work. You cannot be smart unless you know the nuts and bolts, and for that you need to work hard. So it's. I don't think it's mutually exclusive. I always feel both are required. You know, but when it comes to a leadership role, um, I won't say it's a smart work, it's a leader's responsibility. A leader should first accept that need not be the most competent person in the room.
Mm.
It's not necessary for the leader to be the most competent. What his job is to find the right competent people to do the job, encourage them, help them to achieve it. Through them, you get success. Leadership is all about others. I would rather say, not about yourself. Yeah, and that is maybe you can say politically it's smart work where you get things done from others, but that doesn't mean this blind delegation. How you nurture those talent, how you grow them, you know, and how do you make sure that you truly empower them, and how do you give them the right exposure and trust them. You should know that they need not be policed, they need not be monitored. They will do their job. Your job is of a coach, not of a mentor, especially for senior people. And this word is something I've always felt it is sometimes, many times used uh, usually, as the same word. And for me, coaching and mentorship are two different things. Mentoring is very important for when you get a management trainee or a junior person who's executive who has to be guided. But a manager needs a coach. He doesn't need a mentor. Now, mentoring is offering advice based on knowledge, your experience, your expertise. But coaching is more insightful. Insightful questioning,
Mm.
sparking a person to think differently. So the techniques to be used is very different. In fact, the role involves asking and listening rather than mostly for coach it's asking and listening exactly what you are doing today rather than knowing and telling, wherein you say I know and therefore I prescribe and I tell what should be done. It's more of asking and listening. So that is the role of a leader. And whether you can call it smart work, I don't know, but maybe that is smart work. When you do that, you are making sure a lot of other people around you are highly productive. And with that, you as a leader are leading an amazing team, which is very, very productive and very, what do you say, successful. And that is where the leader success lies. It is
Well,
it's,
I
It's not in
I
you, how you harvest the resources which you have around you.
mm, yeah. So I keep saying, you have the unique capacity to talk to an operations guy in operations language, and an SCM guy in SCM language, and a finance guy in finance language. And today you spoke in a very coaching language. Great distinction between coach and a mentor. I think powerful questioning and listening are the cornerstones of coaching. VSG, there are two questions, one from Nitin, one from Abhijit. Both are pretty much on similar lines, talking about uh, balancing between short-term goals and long-term goals. How do you do that?
Well, short-term goals are subsets of long-term goals. Those are the so first thing I believe is to have long-term goal, a vision, which is realistic and where you want to be, and then you put the stepping blocks how you get there, and those are short-term goals which you actually design and put yourself so that you conquer the mountain by taking baby steps. You just cannot go there in one go. uh, Sometimes this can be you do encounter crises, while you're working. Things may not happen the way you envisioned. There can be challenges. There are needs for course corrections. You know. Now those I don't see. Those are tasks for you to
Okay,
navigate. That should not be confused with the short-term goals, because I feel that one, come what may, should be undivided attention which we are giving. We should not be changing the goalpost, the long-term goal, just because the environment around you is changing. You should be at it.
sure. Another question by Chid says, people are really keen for quick career growth, going after fancy designations. Um, so how does one balance? Um, yeah. So I think question is pretty much self-explanatory.
Yeah, yeah. So that's where, you know, if you may be a small fish in a large pond, since you spoke about that, you know, you can appear like a big fish in a small mug. That small fish can appear like a very, very big fish if it's in a small bowl or in a small mug. Yeah. So then you have got a great designation. You look big. The thing is, you think that is the world. That small bowl is the world, and you don't see the ocean. Yeah. So that's where you need to know the art of balancing and having the right perspective. Sometimes you may be in a small bowl, but you should know how you should jump out of it and get into a pond, to a lake, and to an ocean if required. So that and that ambition is required. And there, I don't think designations hierarchy should matter. It should be your drive. It should be your vision, your aspiration. That should fuel it. And these are things which will come. But if you are not clear about it, you become, as I told you, you become part of the, or you will become the victim or prisoner of experience. You will not be the designer. You will be designed by the outside world. Somebody will say 5,000 rupees more. I'll give you what appears to be a double promotion on paper, and you don't have clarity about yourself. You just chase it. You go for it, and you kind of hope this is the right way to do, and this is where I'm going to become big one day, and you get lost. That is because you don't have a direction of yours. You don't have a trajectory. You are allowing others to pull you through certain directions and trajectory, and you are just flowing by the, you're drifting. You justify it by saying what you see immediately materially around you. See, I got 20% increase, I got a designation which is much bigger than what it was before, but you don't look at it relatively. Am I moving from a pond to a mug and then getting a designation? That perspective, many, especially youngsters today, lose it. And many of them feel coming and going to office is learning. And they sometimes, I've also seen a lot of youngsters saying, it is not only the designation, it's a totally different thing where I can learn more.
Mm.
As I told you before, it's not the circumstances, how you absorb what is there. In fact, 7 years back in Page and today, 7 years back, I don't think I could have learned more about sustainability in Page, and I'm still in Page. Today, we have come so much. I have learned so much more. I have sharpened my saw there, and many aspects of the business I can say within the same organization, because organizations do grow, it evolved, and therefore it is very different from what it was some time back. There's no need to say I need to necessarily look out for that. The opportunities are limited. It's with boundaries. I don't think there are boundaries. The organization has it, but it's important you find organizations which are growing organizations with value based organization principles, having a good credo. That is very important. Not organizations who are obsessed with profitability alone. You need to find a responsible organization. Uh, and of course, if you want to change career, you should. In fact, even I have done it. But I feel that should be part of your design. It should not be because one day your boss shouted at you or something happened and I feel like, I, I opportunities outside. It is like throwing in the towel, putting in the towel without giving it a fight. That that doesn't condition you at all. You should be at it. It should be based on your design. It should not be based on the influences which is coming from outside. You should know how to insulate yourself from all that.
Yeah, so there are a couple of questions coming in as well, but I'm very curious to get to the entrepreneurial phase of your journey. I know we have, uh, as in coming towards the end. Uh, Probably will take about 10-15 minutes. Um, I know about the entrepreneurial phase of yours, about the instant photo making machine, very adventurous, and I'm probably one of the privileged people to know about it, about how your journey was, etc. But when did that entrepreneurial journey happen for you? What lessons that had for you?
Well, as I told you, that is when I was studying, and I decided I need to go to a bigger town, but not away from my parents. So I went to Cochin,
Okay.
as it's called, and that was a fairly big town that time, very commercial capital of Kerala. And I moved there. I was doing my ACA, and my cousin was the influence or inspiration. He was also very entrepreneurial. And my uncle was a chartered accountant and he had his own business, anodizing aluminium. And, he was a very good, successful entrepreneur. So they, they actually helped us. And, the investments were made in putting up India's first quick service photography. This all happened when there was a holiday in Singapore. And in a
Okay.
coffee, when we were having coffee, we could see people giving prints, and there was written QSS 45 minutes print. And then we crossed the road, saw in 45 minutes you can get the prints. And in India, there was nothing like this. This excited us. And this investment was made in the house where we were staying. The ground floor was where the showroom was. The first floor was partly office, partly house. The second floor is where the lab was, the
Hmm.
machines. And then One thing we realized quickly is anybody who has money can buy this machine, and once you do it, you are given that intelligence to people, and there will be hundreds of machines mushrooming across the state or the country. So we knew how can we have a brand equity quickly, how can we become the top of the mind recall brand, and how can we also get the money invested quickly. This is when we thought we will have a pan Kerala presence, even though this land is Cochin. And we came with a model. There in Kerala, you know how people work. They take the train, say, from Trivandrum, and they go to Cochin to work, and they go back home in the evening. And there are trains from Cochin or, in fact, Mangalapuram to Trivandrum. And these trains are timed in such a way. One starts at 6 in the morning and reach from Trivandrum. It reaches 9:30, 10 in Cochin, so that they can go to office. You know, and
Mm.
evening it starts at 5:30. And these people play cards there. There are compartments where they socialize. There are groups. So what we thought is they're all working hard. They're computing. Why can't we look at a pan-India presence wherein they get some pocket money? So we had kiosks in all the railway stations. The Trivandrum, Tiruvalla, Kottayam, all these stations had kiosks where the films are collected and kept in the kiosk. One of these guys who's traveling from Kottayam to Ernakulam will hand carry it. There's a kiosk in the Cochin station. The photo fast guys will collect it. We process it. Evening, the ready-made photo is there. Album is ready. This guy takes it and gives it back to Kottayam, and he gets a pocket money out of it. Students, small clerks, and people who are working in offices. So photo fast became pan India, pan Kerala, and it became very popular. The one other thing again to create that brand equity in Kerala, one thing we found is everything has associations and unions. If you are cutting coconut, there's a Chattu Todlali union. If you are, you know, so everything has this. We were thinking, how can we leverage on it? So there is a association for all the private buses. There are a lot of these private buses which travel, and we met the union leaders. We spoke to them, and they started changing the name. This is in MG Road. They call it Photofast Junction.
Wow.
All the buses had Photofast Junctions written in it. That made it the brand very, very, So, of course, you won't. We wound up this business decades ago. We took our own paths. I was in Cochin some 3 years back, and this buses still have that Photofast junction written there, and you can't find out where Photofast is.
That's quite a legacy.
So, when you put money and when you run your business, you become so desperate, you learn so much because
Mm.
it's survival. Sometimes when comfort zone, these ideas don't spark. You think your bosses will have to tell you, but when this is where that entrepreneur thinking. When you work in a company, if you always think it's your money, these kind of thoughts and everything comes automatically to you because you're under the pump. You put yourself under the pump. This is where I always say you have to be assertive.
Mm.
And many times people think assertiveness for a leader is how you're trying to be dominant with others, how you're trying to extract work from others. For me, assertiveness is inward looking. How can you be assertive about your principles, about yourself, your vision, your task? How can you be assertive inward rather than trying to say you are not performing, I am going to push you? If you are assertive to yourself, it is so contagious. Whatever the leader does is contagious. It goes around with your team. So I'm a very assertive guy, but I'm very, very assertive to myself, not to others. But people Many coaches have told me I'm not aggressive, I'm not assertive, but I always believe I'm assertive to myself.
Yeah, like I recall our conversation, you are a perfect antithesis for a very popular leadership leadership frameworks. If any leadership researcher wants a devil's advocate, then they can meet you. VSG, one of the questions that was there was, how does anyone prepare themselves for higher roles?
Well, you if you want to be a leader, you need to ask yourself certain questions, and that's when you say higher roles, I will rather say leadership role. And leadership role is one role which is always watched, it's always scrutinized. Many times you are judged by people. They always have a wiser counsel after the event when they judge you. You take decisions, but they judge you after that, and they will have wiser counsel, and they can make you look ridiculous. And every move of yours is watched. You are always under scrutiny. If you do not like that, and of the idea of being always held accountable, having to answer for your actions, taking lessons from others, then leadership is not your cup of tea. You may empower team, you may be affable to teams, you may be a good coach, you may be a good mentor, but this aspect, if you can't digest, then you can't be a good leader. So that is something you need to condition yourself on, along with whatever many textbooks says as far as leadership is concerned. So as we grow in the organization, as you rightly said in the beginning, it may look very, very nice, good cabin, good cars, this and that. What do you call this? Is in your terms, in HR terms, coach, this is the tournament theory, right? As you graduate in the higher tournaments, the rewards are more, but you need to sweat it. It is not a hunky dory as it looks from outside in. So again, if you are looking at higher roles with all these physical things which you look, and you may feel, therefore, if you fathom a life of joy and comfort, then you'll be hugely disappointed when you get in. And that's where many leaders actually lose track, because it's a they are watching from a distance, and they may think, oh, I can fly here and there business class, and you know um, I will be taken care of. It is not that easy, and many times you'll be disappointed. But if you can thrive on challenges, and if it makes your adrenaline flowing, leave alone all the materialistic things, that is when you are preparing yourself for the greater role. So that is, I feel, important. And another big thing which we should develop is a good leader should put through fear. We should have the ability to assess risk, and we should take whatever action which is required. And many times these are actions which others may not take. So this is very important. And if you can create that ability, and if you can stay away, if you are fearless, and if you don't succumb to fear, then you will be a good leader. But again, I say fearless with responsibility. In fact, you might have heard this times: fearfully responsible and responsibly fearless.
Yes.
Why I say responsibly, fearfully responsible, is because your action affects many others. It is not you alone. It can affect thousands of people. Therefore, you should be fearful of that responsibility while you are fearless about what you are doing. But what I mean, therefore, is not leadership is I personally believe it's not a playground for experimenting ideology, bringing in change for the sake of it, doing things differently because we want to stay like this on the beach. People do this. I think that's the worst thing a leader can do. He should not make his playground an ideological playground for experimentation and use the organization to do his experiment. And that is fearfully responsible. You know, you have characters building. I think you are moving towards the next level of your organization because you continue your actions, your words, your deeds speak, and your leaders observing with respect. Have one thing you coach has no idea, but moral or a next from the more most moral, it is not just getting the job done. How it is, how did you get the job? That is more important than
Perfect, VSG. Not just it's not just about reaching to the top, but how did you reach to the top, and that equally matters. And as we head towards the last few minutes of the show, call out to all the listeners. I'm only seeing a few comments from Abhijit, Gurupreet, and others. Please put in your comments. How was the session for you? What did you pick up from this particular session? Would be great to see some comments from you as we wrap up in the next few minutes. Look forward to the comments. And VSG, as as we head to the wrap up, um, two questions for you. One, what are the career myths that you come across that you don't believe in? As in, some of the beliefs that people hold, which can be limiting to their growth, and that's something that you don't believe in. Um, plus, personally for you, what do you think are the two, three traits or qualities that have contributed to your success?
okay. No, I think the first career myth is me thinking that we arrived if we have got certain A4 laminated piece of paper.
That's a new description I've heard of certificates.
That is only the boarding pass. That has just given you the boarding pass. Now you need to take off, and that is in your hands. That may give you the first job. How you from there, how you build your career, it is going to be very different from all that you learn to get those A4 laminated sheets. And you need to unlearn, and you need to be humble enough. Some I have seen many people thinking, "Oh, fair God, I have arrived. Now I know the world, and I'm destined to be like this." And then you become complacent because it's hard work to get there, right? So you are actually looking for a release. This is where that only 1% people make it to the top. That is because it requires persistence. It's a marathon. You can't think like, now let me enjoy. The moment you do that, it is gone. And that torture should be pleasurable for you. When you run that marathon, it should be a pleasure. So that goal orientation is very, very important. So I think this is one big thing which I always feel is important. Second career myth, which I have seen many people making, and I keep telling this to youngsters, is the way you brand an employer or a company many times is from an outside in perspective. You are not seeing the underbelly of the company, and you take career decisions, and you think you have arrived. It may give you a good social standing in the very beginning. If you are working in some very glamorous company, Your peer group may say, or your relatives may say, you're in a good company. Maybe it's not a good company. It is having $1 billion of turnover, maybe. Yeah. If you want to shape your career, it's as good as the company you keep. And the company in which you work is also the company which you, right? You need to pick and choose. And many times it may not be the most glamorous company, but it's a company with value systems, it's a company with principles, and a company which fosters learning and development, which values people. That is where you can grow, and they can be, therefore they can be. And if you see many big leaders in big corporates, they come from small good companies, they're grown, and then they're moved away once. And it's very important, don't go by that glamour. And I always believe, and I tell my kids also, it's not the company which you choose, it's the boss which you choose. I was lucky enough to have great bosses who brought me here. And you should know whom you're choosing to work with. That's your choice. And today, compared to my generation, I won't say your generation, coach, you're much younger to me, but at least in my generation, you can't make out. There is no Glassdoor, there's no social media, there is no networking like what we have today. Today,
Absolutely.
you are armed with those information. You can understand, and this is something you should not take it lightly. You work in a company. Ideally, you should work only in 3 or 4 companies in your entire career. That decision has to be taken with much more care than what many people are doing today. Today, a consultant may tell this is the company you need to work, and you choose to work there. You don't do any homework.
Mm.
That's not good. So that I don't think will take you any. And
Yeah.
your second question, as a leadership, for me, it has been simple, coach. It is how you can be positive all the time. Even if there's a challenge, how can you search opportunities? So I've always been a great advocate of how to avoid the tyranny of the hour and embrace the genius of the hand. And second one, I firmly believe how to be even tempered. We will face crisis, we will face conflicts, we will face challenges, and this is for sure. It's very important we don't lose our equilibrium, we don't lose our poise at these times, and we should stay positive and we should stay even tempered. If we become negative, the casualty will be the quality of a decision.
Mm.
If we are very emotional, it rubs in around the team. The team will, it's in the air. It affects the morale of the team. Yeah. So you should not lose your poise. And if you lose your poise, you can't think rationally. It will be emotional decision. And I feel when you're even tempered, you are likable. And I I believe likability is a great competency which a leader should develop.
Mm.
Time somebody walks into your cabin, when he goes out of the cabin, if he feels it was refreshing, it was so positive, I am inspired. I'm feeling valued. I'm feeling respected. I felt nice being with that person for those 5-10 minutes. That is your duty. That's not a favor you're doing. As a leader, it's your duty to do that. And that is likability. And if you can, if you're pleasant, and then we are easy to understand. If you're unpleasant, people are confused. So I think there is a lot of clarity of thought if you're pleasant, because the other person finds you easy to understand, and they don't see swings because you're even tempered. Even temper can mean you're always angry also. Yeah, but choice you make. I felt the best even tempered thing wherein you can keep control of yourself and be good to others is to be pleasant. You can say, many people say, in fact, many of the people say, when I talk about it, they say, like, this means you are trying to say, in a way, you're politically safe. You're trying to be politically safe.
Not
uh,
really.
I feel that's a bit of a negative word. I would rather say you are influential. You're trying to influence people in a positive manner. And that, I feel, has helped me all these days. And I feel likability helps you to build trust. And that is what makes a successful leader. If you have trustworthy people, if you are trustworthy, first you, as a person, as VSD, should be worthy of others' trust. And if you are likable, you win their trust. And once you build that trust, people are willing to die for you. So that is the power of likability, according to me. And likability helps you to take diverse opinions, because people don't, they talk unpleasant things also. They challenge you because there's no barrier. And that is where you get various perspectives, and you take the right decision, because uh, decisions are not only rational, they are also emotional. Other people's emotions are also to be understood, right? And people should be comfortable to be that transparent. So you bring in transparency when you are likable, and therefore you tend to take the right decisions, and it brings in much better alignment. The likability coach helps to foster principled confrontation.
Principled
Confrontation
confrontation. Huh.
that is healthy.
Very healthy. Completely agree with you.
You need to encourage principled confrontation. And if you are not likable, especially when you are in a very powerful position, the authority makes sometimes builds a huge shield around you. People may not be forthcoming, and so you, sh- you you should use the authority only for your responsibility. It should never be used for control.
Yeah, that can be detrimental to.
Absolutely.
Great, VSG. The comments flowing in speak for themselves. I think this is a um, very insightful session. I think a lot of them, including me, got a little more deeper insight into uh, the cool, calm, you know, humble stature that you have. The underbelly of those, the below the iceberg qualities, thoughts, and beliefs that really make you the person you are. I think a lot of takeaways around how to how you respond to failure gives you learning, and not about it's not about not failing, but how you respond to those failures makes you who you are. And I think the kind of clarity that you showed in choosing company secretaryship and going for it, not really in prioritizing where you spent your time, um, clarity on buying car at 24, and buying the rig and having a chauffeur for the rig is even more, and making the decision of going for the role rather than the money, having that kind of maturity at that age, I think speaks volumes. The message for all of us from there is to focus on learning more than earning, and earning anyway succeeds learning. So that's pretty much in terms of how do you make those career decisions. In terms of choosing companies, you said focus on the goodness of the company, and we have lots of information these days. Should pick and choose on what kind of companies to work for. And you also shared about traits that sort of made you the leader you are, the likability quotient, um, bringing in the healthy confrontation, collaboration. And I think, I think it was Venkatesh who mentioned saying that we have 10 years of learning in this particular uh, 1 hour, or close to 90 minutes of discussion. Thanks a ton for your time. Um, I'm sure this is going to be available as a recording, um, on YouTube, like forever, and on LinkedIn, for about a year or so, or a little more. And I'm sure many of us will go through this recording again and again, and it has a lot of potential to give direction. So there will be many ekalavyas of sorts who will benefit from this VSG musing. We look forward to your VSG musings. So please keep them coming.
Yeah,
Periodically, we learn from that.
yeah, sure, coach. In fact, today when I was talking, it maybe the next one can be on how to be a designer, not be part of the design. So I
Oh
will,
yeah,
I will then the
that's
thought came, and that's a good thought which I think I can share there. But coach, it was absolute pleasure. I think I crossed my brief by half an hour, but the time flew. I enjoyed it. I don't know whether I made a lot of people out there yawn a bit, but for me, it was an absolute pleasure interacting with you all. And thank you so much for giving me the opportunity.
pleasure, VSG. I can't see who has yawned, but even if they have yawned, I'm sure they'll go through this recording and that will open their eyes. So I'm pretty confident of that. So I know time is of essence for you, and thank you for sharing this time, and we look forward to more and more of your VSG musics. Thank you once
Thank you.
again.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you, VSG.